Hey, Peter van Inwagen is a philosophy professor at the University of Notre Dame, and he's done a lot of work on free will. He's written extensively on it, and he has a problem with it. On the one hand, he sees it as necessary for moral culpability. It seems obvious that people are responsible for things. People in history, bad things have happened, somebody did it. So we need moral culpability. But on the other hand, he has a problem that it just doesn't seem possible. And the way he comes to that conclusion is he considers two cases. The world is either deterministic or the world is indeterministic. It's one of the two. In the deterministic case, free will doesn't make sense because the world is always moving toward a predetermined future. We don't have moral choices. We're just acting out the laws of nature. Things are just happening according to predetermined paths. I think that's kind of obvious. What about the indeterministic case? You'd think that that might work. For some reason, Inwagen sees that as a problem. Let's have a listen and see what he says about that.
If you knew that it was just a matter of indeterministic chance, which thing you would do at a certain point in time, you wouldn't be able to promise to do one or the other. You would just have to wait and see what would happen. So it looks as if free will is incompatible with determinism on the one hand and incompatible with indeterminism on the other hand, so it must be impossible.
So free will is impossible because it's incompatible with either a deterministic world or an indeterministic world. But at the beginning of that segment, did you notice how he put it? He called it indeterministic chance. So he's kind of attaching the word chance there. When you hear him talk about indeterminism, he's talking about a chance world. So when Inwagen is talking about indeterminism, he's talking about chance. Now, by the way, on that deterministic world, when we talk about that, we're talking about natural law, a world driven by natural law. So the choices Inwagen is presenting here are, one, a world driven by natural law, or a world driven by chance. Why are these the two choices? Well, these are the two choices of science. Science deals with chance events and law-driven or law-like events. It's kind of highlighted here in this famous book by Nobel laureate Jacques Monod that he wrote about 50 years ago, Chance and Necessity. So he's talking about these two fundamental categories of science. These are your choices in science, chance and necessity. So in both of the cases, a world driven by natural law and a world driven by chance, both of these fall under the category of science. But why should we constrain ourselves merely to scientific alternatives? After all, science does not explain the origin of life. Science does not explain the diversity of life. Science does not explain our sensory perception. Now, what do I mean by that? So in your brain, you have electrical impulses feeding into your brain. Those are the inputs. You're getting sensory inputs that are electrical signals. Your nose is not delivering smells to your brain. Your eyes are not delivering images to your brain. You don't have little images floating in there. It's electrical. It's all electrical. Somehow those electrical signals are converted from your 5 different senses. These electrical signals are converted to a perception. You have a perception. You're hearing things, you're seeing things, and so forth. There's no scientific explanation for how that works. No scientific explanation. Nothing compelling. That's that. Science also does not explain consciousness and our self-awareness. Science does not explain, yes, our free will experience, the sensation of free will. There's no compelling scientific explanation for that or any of these 5 bullets. In short, our experience as humans, our lives, everything we're experiencing, it's outside of science. It's really, this shouldn't be a big surprise to you. It's kind of intuitive, but that's the way it is. And the majority of our experience, the majority of the things we deal with on a daily basis, science doesn't explain. So why in the world, if we're thinking about free will, would we limit ourselves to categories of science? If Inwagen seeks to resolve his conundrum about free will, we suggest he broaden the horizon. The fact that free will doesn't make sense in a law-driven world and in a chance-driven world simply does not imply that free will is impossible. Religion drives science, and it matters.